January 24th, 2022. Things that happened in the real world today that leave one totally confused and not sure of how to handle. I mean, these are the things I don't even have a counselor, a church clergy. There's nothing in this. I have the unit, the parental unit, we'll say the L&L dialogue of what I was raised off of, which got no answers, no pearls of wisdom, no preparation whatsoever to be anything at any gate. Relying on the kindness of strangers to educate us, being school system or whatever, and then having to try to figure out what filter that came from, which is always the really difficult part. So today on the news media, on the teleportation device, they had a story about baby formula, meaning when the children first are born, some moms are not able to breastfeed, whatever, they offer a substitute breast milk. To breast milk, they call it a formula. Apparently on the store shelves they're going empty and people are concerned. I have no idea. It has to pertain to something, I am assuming, on a larger scale schematic conversation at the moment. Since the normal front story is not relevant. And then there was a mention of a gigantic cruise ship with some named Crystal, and I don't know the second name, who was headed to Florida full of passengers, and then and then all of a sudden they were going back to port fully, like after their whole vacation, and then it was turned around and wasn't allowed back in to port and docked somewhere in Bahamas, which was interesting. And then the news, Channel 2, so it's Tony DeCopo, Nate, and Gail. Then they were, I think that's who it was this morning. They were all speaking on, saying that, and some man named Vlad, they were saying that they didn't pay their fuel bill or something, so it wasn't able to enter U.S. waters. It was in Bahamas. Again, I have no idea what that was all about. And then they were expanding on that. They're like, could you imagine how much fuel you must have for such a gigantic ship, and then for them not to pay their fuel bill, but the passengers were almost held on some excursion. Like if you have work the next day, you're planning on going home, like big inconvenience, and no real whatever why. Then there is a piece of real world that happened. Apparently, in the school this year where my son is, they keep, well, according to my son, someone gave him $100 bill. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, that is a lot. What happened? And he's like, no, I know. He says, I have to bring it back. I'm like, all right. So now going through my head and my calculations, I'm like, oh my God, this is like, why are they offering money at school? Why is he taking money at school? Who does this money belong to? Why is this child offering money to the children? What does he expect in return? Is this some kind of symbolic thing? Because my son looks like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in a group of regular reindeer with black noses. So he is that different looking in his classroom. So I'm like, what is the problem? Like, why? Well, this is, I didn't have, that I'm aware of, I wasn't offered whatever. So I'm like, okay. And then, as I said, I don't want you taking money from people. You don't know who these people are. This is not okay. Like, I mean, even in elementary school, with the black shroud around the school, which leads me in like whole other like what's going on. So then my son's then the he said the teacher called no no. So now the story changed, and I'm like, wait a minute, you just told me that the kid gave it to you today and you're bringing it back tomorrow, which I wasn't comfortable with you even leaving school. You want to look at the $100 bill and examine it? It's whatever. I mean, like, I just, what? But to leave, I'm like, ay, ay, ay. And then he said, well, the teacher knew. And I go, your teacher knew? And now your teacher knew that he gave this money to you. And what did the teacher say? Didn't the teacher tell you not to take it home, not to take it? It's a lot of money. It belongs to the. I mean, like, look and. I mean, like, how does. And then I'm like, is this fingerprint collections by these new children that just entered the school district from foreign nation? I don't know where. And I'm like, because none of, like, they don't speak English as a first language either. And I'm like, wow, where does one go with this? So the teacher knows, the children know. Now, my son apparently didn't. And my son's like, well, he may have let me bring it home a couple of days ago. And I was like, that's even worse. I was like, what do you mean a couple of days ago? I was like, why didn't you bring it back? So then he says to me, I said, no. I said, you have to bring this back. This is unacceptable. I was like, you show the teacher. You make sure the teacher's involved in giving it back to the kid. I don't want you owing anybody anything. I was like, and this is a really bad, bad, bad scenario that I'm not comfortable with. So then I come home and my mom said, did he tell you? And I was like, yeah, he did tell me. I was like, how do you know? And she said, well, apparently the teacher called dad. And I go, now why would the teacher call dad? All right, so teacher called dad about this situation going on. I was like, what happened there? No, and she was like, nothing. He said he would bring it back. Of course he would bring it back. I was like, all right. So I'm like, okay, so base is covered there. And I'm just like, why does this keep happening? And then I go to the park with my son today, and there's an NYPD officer at the gate, and a group of, I don't know what, with their back to me, plain clothes, whatever. And then in the opposite, whatever, they had a long van with the lights on and an officer there. And then two people on the inside of the park walked over there and back, saying something about see something, say something. And then, which I overheard, which again, the park was not as busy as it normally is. But the group in the front that were just standing there, they went away without any interaction, no speaking, no communication, no anything, just whatever they were there for, I don't know. So they went on and they were just doing their kiddo things, my son and whoever else was there. But what frightens me is all of this unspoken rules, etiquettes, and social things that I'm not made privy to. I'm not brought into this conversation. But yet there's people from elsewhere, which I don't know if, I mean, again, if you were brought in from elsewhere in some migrationary thing, I don't know the level of home territory communication they might be with, which might put me in danger. I have no idea about their customs, their rules, how they might view my son taking part in, like, this is like frightening on a whole nother scale of uh-oh. And who do I ask? Who do I counsel with? I mean, like, how does that work? There's no, I'm in a village, in a fallout shelter, designated whatever, on the boulevard, on Main Street. I, I feel like I'm in some secret danger at all times, which I'm glad, thank you for whatever silently happened today, that there's no confrontation, because I heard also one of the talent, I think they call at some level, or actors with talent that are on like real, like Drew Barrymore level shows. They were saying that it's easier to battle it in the studio than it is on the streets. And like then that little loop of human intelligence looped in, and that's what really frightens me, is because like I don't want to confront people on the streets of I could be in danger. I just have a lot of changes going on, and I don't know who or where to address, since if I tell one officer, he's got a chain of command that I don't know if that chain's working and what flagpole they run it up. So, because it's usually like you have a chain of command, and then the humans talk about something about, well, run it up the flagpole. Right, okay, well, here's the thing. If you run it up the flag, which flag? Which flag, which pole? And then that could put me in further danger. I mean, I've already been a victim of, I mean, at one point, somebody mentioned, like, in a space between here and there, blackout crimes. But blackout crimes meaning you get hit with some kind of either shot or needle that knocks you out. I know they had something about date rape crimes on the news at one point, and then that went silent. And then designer drugs, which, I mean, if you take a drink, how do you know? And then if you wake up, I mean, I've had whatever, but then how do you protect yourself from that? And is there, I mean, again, I've been a victim of it. I just, again, don't know what happened to the helpful sort in Forever Family, with other things that went on. And I know I belong, right, I belong Special Task Force Mark, and at times I can remember it's a mirror image of my name, is a name he took on for my whatever I am, but stuck in a really bad common sense situation, which common sense doesn't always, like, you're not born with common sense. You have to go through some stuff and discover, and it doesn't always make sense. And so I'm kind of like, I try to use the best logic, but it's a wiffle ball with holes in it that I'm putting my fingers through and holding to my chest, and like, I was not designed for this area and this level of whatever you got going on in humanness. But I'm telling you right now, I don't know who to speak to about my own personal issues. So I've been just addressing myself on some form of recording device for, there's like a systemic and bigger issue, but there's local municipality issues, and then there's like some real professionals that know how to deal with stuff in between, but I don't know where they get all jammed up in process of, no, it's definitely Special Task Force Mark. There's something about $1 billion hedge fund. There was something about before Trump got elected, There was like real importance, and before I got hit with cyborg and cyber and genetic issues in really dangerous acclimate and climbing tension with I show weakness, don't show weakness. Right, okay. I mean, it's emergency situation, so in the field it gets really confusing, especially when your memory keeps getting knocked out of details. Devil's in the details? Yeah, well, my memory keeps getting knocked out of the one detail I need, which is Special Task Force Mark. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.